Does anybody know?
My birthday.
Ah, okay.
Universal reason to celebrate?
That's the day that Unitarian Universalists celebrate the birth of Socrates. As well, A UU Sunday school teacher asked members of the class, and I'm sure we do a better job of religious education, but just humor me. What is Easter? And one child said, Easter is when we carve pumpkins and ring doorbells and say trick or treat. Another child said, Easter is when we decorate a tree with bright lights and we give people presents. A third declared, Easter is the day we send heart-shaped cards to people we love. But the last child said, Easter is a time when we think about Jesus. He was a great teacher who lived a long time ago. He did many things to help people, but some people in the government got really angry at him. And so they killed him by nailing to a cross. And when he died, he was buried on the third day, after which is Easter. And he came out of the tomb where he was buried. And if he sees the shadow, there'll be 6 more weeks. Wow. One last one, and then we'll get on to the business. A Unitarian Universalist, a Hindu brother and a Jewish brother were on their way to an interfaith conference when the car broke down, and they were forced to seek refuge in a farm for the evening. They were welcomed, but informed that there was only one room for 2 of them. One of them would have to stay in the barn, so the Hindu volunteered and he went out. And soon there was a knock at the door. It was the Hindu who informed them that staying in the barn was impossible because there was a cow there. The Jewish brother then agreed to stay in the barn and went out, and soon there was another knock at the door. And it was the Jewish man who said, I can't stay in the barn because there was a pig there. The Unitarian Universalist then happily agreed to stay in the barn and went out. Soon there was a knock at the door. It was the cow and the cow. It's terrible. I got 1 million of them, but I don't. Now we can talk about courage, love, and possibility. And this is just my opinion, okay? But one of the keys to our spiritual growth, to human beings evolving, is the ability to see things as they are. Not as we are, but as they really are. And this can take time, and it most definitely will take some courage. It is my contention that in order for human beings to shift from our present self-destructive ways of being to a more life-sustaining way of being, we have to take a really good, long, hard look at what is happening to our world. And this means looking the danger dead in the eye and still finding the means to act. And I want to be clear here. For those of us who may not have that activist spirit, maybe we don't have to go out and march or to write letters, because there's many different ways to make a difference. And so looking at ourselves and changing ourselves is activism in a way. Because remember that the effect is the last level of manifestation. It's the causes that we want to look after. Because the causes will manifest in our lives, collectively and individually. So our outer world is a reflection of our own personal and collective chaos. So we're all responsible in some way. But there are many ways to make a difference. And as conscious embodied beings, endowed with the inherent worth and dignity that we talk so much about, as well as multiple sensory perception, we as human beings are built to respond. Instantly, we leap from the path of an oncoming truck. We dash to get water to put out the fire. We dive into the pool to save the life of a child. This responsibility has been an important feature of life throughout our evolution as human beings. It allows us to adapt to and to create new possibilities. It enables entire groups and societies to survive as long as its members, and this is key, as long as we have the correct information, then we have the freedom and the ability to act. You see, responding to danger is a function of feedback. For only with good information can we find and carry out the appropriate action. Some would argue that this may be why people in power say knowledge is power. Now, knowledge is not always wisdom. But if I know something that you don't, and I can keep that from you, I have power over you. And it seems in our current situation here on planet Earth, though, things don't seem so simple. The dangers facing our planet now are so massive and so unprecedented that for many of us, they're overwhelming. They're difficult to even believe. And so, the very danger signals that should rivet our attention and summon us to come together in collective action at times tend to have just the opposite effect for many. Now, this is changing somewhat. I believe that. And so some would say, well, Michael, is the glass of water half full or half empty? That's a good question. It depends on how you look at life. Maybe we should just get a whole new glass of water. But, in the summer, the great discussion about the Confederate flag and what that really means to us individually and us as a nation. We couldn't have that conversation maybe even 5 years ago. The Affordable Care Act. This is something that we've resisted because it smacked to some of socialism. Marriage equality. Affordable housing. Last summer, the Episcopal Church elected its first African-American bishop, the Right Reverend Michael Curry. And of course, the shooting of those African-American members of the church in Charleston and the forgiveness of the 21-year-old Mr. Dylan Roof, whose life is ruined. Now, it's done. It's done. And I suggest that we keep him and his family in our prayers, because it's going to be rough for this gentleman. But the consciousness is shifting. There's a new spirit in the land, if we want to use those words. On May 6th, NPR ran, and PBS, because I watched the NewsHour, ran a story about the swift but retributional justice that came about after a mob of 49 people murdered an individual because she was said, allegedly, to have burned a copy of the Quran. This was in Afghanistan. It turned out the woman was innocent, but she was beaten, she was thrown from a roof, and then she was set on fire. This is overkill, no pun intended. And because violence against women was so and is so commonplace there, why it made the news is the fact that 4 out of the 49 men, one a mullah, one a tribal leader, was condemned to be executed for his actions in the murder of this young woman. This was unprecedented. Now, I am not for capital punishment. This is frontier justice for sure. But clearly a change of consciousness is going on across the planet. People are beginning to be held accountable for their actions, or at least they're demanded to be some type of accountability. And yet for some of us, these problems make us just want to pull down the blinds in the room and to busy ourselves with other things. Our desire as a nation for distraction supports billion-dollar industries, which tells us that everything will be fine if you just try this car or if you use this deodorant. Don't worry about anything else. It's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day details of our lives and to lose sight of the lives around us, especially if those lives contain pain and suffering. Phil, I want to move around so much instead of staying here, but I'm staying. I want to come out, okay. It's okay. No. I just want you to know that I'm antsy. It can be even more difficult to look at our own wounds and our own pain and suffering. And yet we know that in order to grow, we have to look at our own stuff. Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh writes, do not avoid contact with suffering or close your eyes to suffering. And he's talking about others as well as our own. Do not lose awareness of the existence of suffering in the life of the world. Find ways to be with those who are suffering by all means. Awaken yourself to the suffering of the world. In some ways, it's more difficult to see the pain of the person next to us. Because there's an old saying that says, the death of thousands is a statistic, but the death of one person is a tragedy. And the thing about living life, as if we were all rats on a treadmill, is at the end of the day, we're all still rats. The poet Thomas Stern Eliot asks us, where is the life that we've lost in living? Which is reminiscent of a passage that's in our hymnal by Thoreau, who says, why should I live in such a hurry and waste of life? I wish to live deliberately. I wish to learn what life has to teach, and not, when I come to die, discover that I have not lived. I do not wish to live that which is not life. Retired Universalist minister Eric Walker Wigstrom says in his book, Simply Pray, he writes that in one way or another, all of the genuine spiritual teachers have critiques for living the kind of life that is not life. Life that is lived at high speed, jamming everything into every moment, never pausing just to be. We've become collectively human doings as opposed to human beings. And say, most people would say, no, that's not true. But if you looked at my phone or my calendar, or perhaps if I looked at yours, it would tell a different story. The glorification of busy. How you doing? Fine. I'm busy. I say it. We said it. Phil and I said it. And we have been busy. It's not about not being busy. It's just about not living in that place where I'm a good person. I must be a good person. I'm busy, right? I'm a therapist and I see 30 patients a week. I'm a good person. Who said it? Was it Nietzsche? Don't let your struggle become your identity. I guess is a better way of saying it. People today are often so overly programmed that it would take a wind, a powerful wind, a hurricane, an earthquake, and a fire to shake us out of this glorification of busyness. Perhaps to learn to be still, to meditate, to contemplate, even to pray, would turn down the volume of some of our lives. I'm guilty of doing the things that I'm about to name. I'm up to my neck in it as well. And you know how it is, whatever you teach or preach, you need to learn the most. So just want you to hear that. I'm not one of those ministers who I'm just up here and you'll catch up with me. I'm a mess. And you will find it out sooner or later. I don't eat meat anymore. It's been a little over 3 months. But we eat meat from factory farmed animals and produce grown by agribusinesses, knowing of the pesticides and hormones they contain, but we prefer not to think that they'll cause us harm eventually. We buy clothes without noticing where they're made, preferring not to think of the sweatshops that they may have come from. We vote, or some of us don't, and that's okay too, but if we do vote, we vote for candidates we may not believe will really address the problems, hoping suddenly against all previous experience that somehow they will come around. Many of us may use our spirituality as a means of not being engaged. It is said that the Buddha, at the moment of his enlightenment, seriously considered remaining in nirvana. Yet ultimately he decided to return to the world to share what he learned. A Zen priest once remarked The mountaintop is enticing, but we must ultimately return to the marketplace. Joseph Campbell said that this is the challenge of every hero and shero, to remain on the spiritual journey. Ulysses is tempted to stay on the island where the sirens are. Arthur's knights nearly give up their quest for the Holy Grail, and even Dorothy thought about remaining in Oz, at least for a little while. Yet always the journey must continue. It always must continue. You put one step in front of the other, and you keep going to return to the world. Is this type of thinking, this escapism, is it contagious, do you think? I'm glad you asked. Have we become callous and nihilistic? Have human beings ceased to care about what happens on planet Earth? And sometimes it can appear that way. Many reformers and activists decry public apathy. They rouse us, they deliver more and more terrifying information, as if we don't already get it, that there's a problem on the planet. We need you to tell us that. They scold and preach about our moral duties as if we don't care. And all these sermons do, and all these alarms do, is make us batten down the hatches even more. Because we say, what's the use? Increased apathy is often the result. What is apathy? Apatheia is a Greek word that literally means non-suffering. So given the etymology of the word, apathy is the inability or the refusal to feel pain. We don't want to feel the pain of the world. But I want to offer you another perspective this morning. What we're dealing with here, in my mind, is very close to just the opposite. It's the meaning of compassion, which means to suffer with. It is the pain of the world, and it's in each and every one of us. We can't change everything, but we do feel this pain. It's the distress we have on behalf of the larger whole, the interconnected world, which we talk about. Like Michael Jackson told us back in the 80s, we are the world. Compassion and courage makes an individual look into themselves to recognize and to acknowledge our own faults and shortcomings. This is tough stuff. Compassion and courage awakens us to think and to act in less self-centered ways. It results in brotherly and sisterly love, which in Christian sometimes terms agape love, unconditional love. There's nothing you have to do to earn it. It's there because you are. And if we are fortunate, out of this compassion brings forth a generosity of spirit for ourselves and the planet. It springs forth from here, from our hearts. You can't get here from here. It just doesn't work. As the 12 steps tell us, our best thinking got us here. Our best thinking got us here. No one is exempt from pain, any more than one could exist in the world by themselves. We are all part of this interconnected web. We're not closed off from the world, we are part of it. We feel the pain, each and every one of us, and we feel the pain, even when we don't want to. We're not cold, callous people. And the pain is a wake-up call. In order to grow, you must have pain. There's no getting around it. Pain has a purpose, and it's a warning to signal and trigger action in us. The problem, in my estimation, lies not in the pain of the world, but how we repress it. Our efforts to dodge or to dull it surrenders us to futility. In short, we can't respond. We have to open up in order to let the love in. We don't stop swimming in the river of denial and repression by gritting our teeth and then trying to be noble and braver individuals. No, you don't want to do that. We don't renew our passion for life. We don't recapture the creation and passion of our wild and precious lives by scolding and beating up on ourselves. by just saluting and just saying, yes sir, yes ma'am, and stoically going on. That's how we got into this mess in the first place. The most remarkable feature of this historical moment, where we are right now on planet Earth, and this hour, on Sunday, the most remarkable feature is not that we're destroying our world. We've been doing that for quite some time now. It's that we're beginning to wake up. That's what you want to hold on to. That's what you want to resonate with. We are beginning to wake up. Like Rip Van Winkle being asleep for 1,000 years. We're waking up to an entirely new relationship with the planet and with each other. And the worldview that's now emerging, if we decide to accept it, it's like Mission Impossible, is if we are bold enough to experience its implications, it opens us up to the vast possibilities that are before us. It brings us to a larger identity to transcend and to be the creative, authentic, loving, forgiving, beautiful people that we were created to be. This is my belief. In the meantime, our mission, if we decide to accept it, is to be more gentle with ourselves and therefore with the planet. And that we may be gentle with all of creation. And when we do that, there's no telling what we can do. So I suggest, and I'll do it too, actually I already have, but I suggest that we write these words, courage, love, and possibility. Write it on your refrigerator. Write it on your computer. Write it on your iPhones and your tablets. And when you've done all that, don't forget to write it on the tablet of your heart. Amen and blessed be. If you have found freedom here, take it with you into the world. If here you have found comfort, go and share it with others. If here you have dreamed dreams, help one another, that they might come true. If here you have known love, give some back to a bruised and hurting world. If here you have found the resolve to change the world with your love, take that healing energy into every encounter and with every individual you meet. Go in peace and have a wonderful afternoon. But before you go, we have time for discussion if you're up for it.
Pretty quiet group today.
It's all good. There'll be days, I know you'll make up for it. But maybe you just need to process it. I just wanted to say, to keep your heart open, because you're not going to always figure it out, but, it just depends on how you look at the world. If you look at life, that things are terrible and we're just going to blow each other up, which could happen, but we create the world we want by the thoughts. Buddha said it 500 years ago, right? Thoughts are things.
What you said, about being always too rushed. Another author talked about that, and it's in The Little Prince from Saint-Exupéry, when the little prince says to the gentleman, "You're always busy. You always want to do more, to save time." And he said, "If I had time, I would walk very slowly to a fountain to drink water." And when you talk about compassion, I think a lot of people are afraid to feel the pain because they don't know what to do with it. And it reminded me of the movie about something of bees. when that young girl leaves a peach farm with her father in Georgia and goes and take refuge in the home of 3 black women who are
Secret life.
Thank you very much. And the younger sister is someone who is always so deeply wounded when she hears of wrong or pain, that she writes it and puts them in a wall in the back of their property. And one day she's so overwhelmed, she just cannot do it anymore. And I think, at least to me, that's why so many of us retire ourselves from feeling the pain of others. We just don't know how to relate to it and to do something positive with it. We just feel overwhelmed.
Yeah, I agree. I think there are some things we can do, but one of the things we can do is just to be still and to feel it. I'm an old 12-stepper for codependency and the serenity prayer, whether it's Sex Addicts Anonymous or Alcoholics Anonymous or Codependents Anonymous. I mean, God grant me the serenity to accept things I cannot change. The courage to change the things I can and the wisdom to know the difference. A lot of people think that they're going to be Martin Luther King or Mother Teresa. It doesn't have to be grandiose like that. It's what's doable. It's somebody may, take you on a march. Someone else may go feed the hungry. It's just about being responsible for your part of the garden. And I agree with you, and that's why I mentioned it. But change starts within. And so, who was it? The late Wayne Dyer said, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at begin to change. Of course, the Miracles talks about that too. It comes in here, and it's about what's doable. And sometimes you don't have to do anything but just be. There's the old 12 steps. I just need to keep my side of the street clean. A lot of people say, well, I don't like the way so-and-so spends money, or I don't like, that's none of your concern. Your concern is with you. Not in any narcissistic way, but, you mind your own business. We have enough to do.